Yeah.
That's an interesting question, Giovanni, because I have a full workshop a webinar that I do on this particular topic. And 2 weeks ago, when I delivered it to a group, there were 2 people in there that asked that same question. What is it? What does it mean? That was a new term to their vocabulary.
And it's the topic today, right?
Yes.
Sure is.
Just a little slice.
I love it.
How does grit influence your self-leadership?
We are live now on Facebook.
Indeed, we are. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning. Morning, Jane, Bishop, Sorrell, Gio. How's it going today?
Good
Yeah,
morning. Great.
Great.
Fantastic. How's it
Mark.
going with you?
Pretty good. Doing what we do.
Yeah.
Mark, did you vote yet?
Oh, yeah, I voted a couple weeks ago.
Awesome. Awesome.
As did I.
You would have gotten a hall pass to leave the huddle and go if you hadn't.
Nope, I did that already.
Good deal.
Excellent. Excellent. So, Mark, I was asking Giovanni and Sorrell what's a win we can celebrate together. So how about you? What's a win that we can celebrate with you?
Whew. Productivity.
Oh,
Just being able to get a couple things done and being productive for me is a win. And being happy.
yeah. Yes. Fantastic.
What about you, Jane? What can we celebrate with you today?
Well, the opportunity to be with the Daily Huddle again, that's such an honor and an opportunity, and it's just great. So thank you.
We will we are celebrating that with you now.
Yes, and I delivered last week a proposal to a group for a training one day early. You know, it's the overpromise,
Yay!
under promise, over deliver principle. Yeah. So I was really excited about that.
Really tickled. That's great, Jane. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to celebrating you winning that proposal.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Everyone who is on Facebook, celebrating you win that proposal.
Good morning, Jacqueline.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Great to see
Morning,
you.
Jacqueline.
Good morning. Good to be seen. I'm gonna say that one. Good to be seen.
Yes.
Jacqueline, that was a heck of a bike ride you had yesterday.
Yes, it was very, very windy. It was very windy. But nonetheless, I got out there anyway. Had to make that work.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also very excited to announce that our good friend Ronaldo, who's in the audience with us tonight, just completed one of his art exhibits. His art was on exhibit at in the city of Atlanta.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, the
That's
show
great.
Eyes Wide Open. And Ronald had some phenomenal pieces in there. I pray that on an episode of the Daily Huddle soon to come, you'll get to see Ronald's art and understand and get into the head of the artist and find out what makes phenomenal art possible.
Sorrell, where is his art?
That would be great.
Yes.
It was an exhibit in East Atlanta, and the show ended this past Saturday.
Okay, I wanted to go see it, but it's gone.
Yeah,
Yep, it's gone. There'll be another one.
there will be another one. All right, Gio.
Okay, well, let's get us started. Let me just ask, let me see, Jacqueline, let me ask Jacqueline a
Oh.
question.
Yes.
Jacqueline, what did the traffic light say to the car?
Stop. I don't know.
It says, don't look, I'm about to change.
Gio, I'm not sure about that one.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Atlanta. Good morning, Southeast. Good morning, East Coast. Good morning, New York. Good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for being here. Today's election day. Woo woo! And everybody is excited and nobody is nervous. And it's just another day in the office. I'm just declaring it. I'm just declaring it. We're civilized human beings and we love each other. And I have overwhelming evidence of that. Great to be with you guys this morning. It's such a great honor to be here at the Daily Huddle and have the opportunity to get us started so that we can start the day with a particular context that gives you power to make the right decisions, make the right choices during the day. And, you know, we say here that the way you live your day gives you access to the way you live your future. So let's get us primed. Ronald, what time is it?
Giovanni, it is now.
That's it. This is the only time available in the watch, really.
That's it. I look at my watch, it still say now. There's no numbers on it. It say now.
That's it.
I stole
No
this one from
more.
Sorel.
Jacqueline, where are you?
I am right where I'm supposed to be, right here in New York in my office on the Daily Huddle. Good morning.
Yes, wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, right here. That's it. It's the only place you can ever be, right here and right where you're supposed to be. Mark, how are you, man?
I am how I say I am, Gio, and I'm feeling pretty good today. I'm feeling spry.
You get to say, Mark. Great to be with all of you. Thank you all for being here. Sorel, good morning. How are you? America's executive coach. Thank you for creating the opportunity of this conversation, for being a space for everyone around you to have a life they love. Sorel, America's executive coach. Good morning.
Good morning, Giovanni. You are the #1 transformational leadership coach and my partner. Thank you so much for loving on me in my absence. Yesterday, I listened to the show and it's like, oh my God, I missed the show. I missed you guys so much. And I could be where I was because I knew that you were there for me and you were sending everything my way, everything Susan's way. I'm happy to report that all is well and everything's in good shape. And this morning we've got our very good friend Jane Bishop with us. And I want to say a little bit about Jane Bishop. First of all, when I extended a second invitation to Jane to be on the show, I was thinking to myself, well, gosh, I sure hope Jane says yes. She was so great the last time. I can't wait to have her again. And, you know, Jane was an immediate yes. Not only was she an immediate yes, she was a grateful yes. So Jane, I appreciate the space that you are, the graciousness that comes with your expertise and your love for humanity and your love for your craft of making a difference and having people take the next step. So thank you for being here. And I want to say this about you. Jane is known for making it all about the other person. Now, isn't that fitting? She's been described as unexpected and refreshing. She's comfortable engaging other individuals individually or from a platform, delivering a keynote in front of thousands. As a lifelong learner, she continues to learn new skills and techniques, and she holds an academic degree in from three institutions, including the ICF coach credential and multiple certifications. And she is the founder and CEO of Take the Next Step. And you can contact and learn more about Jane and her expertise and her work at takethenextstep.com. And today, Jane's here playing with us inside of this question. How does grit influence your self-leadership? Jane, I cannot wait to hear your conversation. Welcome back to the Daily Huddle. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sorrel. Thank you, Giovanni, and Daily Huddle gatherers. It's an honor to be back with you again. I often am able to join you by Facebook Live, but glad to be in the virtual studio with you this morning. So as we get started today, there's a question that I'd like to pose you. Those of you that are on Facebook Live, go ahead and answer this question in the comments as Sorrel and Giovanni are watching that. But those of you in the studio, I'd like for you to unmute yourself briefly and just answer this question. When you hear the word grit, what shows up for you? When you hear that word grit, what is something that comes to mind? Just real quickly, if you'd unmute yourself, or if you're not comfortable, put it in the chat.
Determination.
All right, determination. What else?
Hard work.
Hard work.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Not giving up.
Not giving up.
Going for the gusto.
Going for the gusto. Anyone else?
I'd say something like in the face of no agreement.
In the face of no agreement.
Peter says resilience.
Okay, resilience, great. Any other comments, Gio, from the Facebook Live audience?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, great. Well, it's interesting as we were talking about this subject in a fuller space a couple of weeks ago. There were a couple of people that immediately posed the question in the chat, what is grit? I've never heard of it before. So that is often the case. And I think part of that stems from that it's a skill not taught currently in a widespread space. So as we think about grit, I just want to pose 2 or 3, maybe 4, just kind of for your pondering, and then let's have a little discussion this morning briefly. I was in an ICF conference several years ago, and I had the opportunity to hear Carolyn Miller, and she's a positive psychology expert, and her topic was grit. And at that particular time, she was giving research and documentation about how all of the Ivy League schools at that particular point in time had adjusted their grading scales so that more students could get an A, because the students didn't know how to take no, and they did not know how to function if it was less than an A plus, A minus, etc. She also provided documentation that in that particular research time, 3 or 4 years ago, the millennial generation and younger didn't know what to do when they got no. They were just getting in, many of them into the workforce, and they were having performance reviews and having less than stellar or excellent performance reviews, and they didn't know how to handle that. So she was drawing the insight into grit that it is a learned skill, and that it is not defined by generations as much as a common Protestant work era that was in previous years to our era today. Now, I don't know about any of you that are part of this space this morning, but even then, I began to think about my own grit factor. How did it show up? How did it develop? How was it making a difference in my life? And then as we have been evolving and surviving and thriving through 2020, my goodness, how the skill of grit, has just come to play in so many respects. There are many definitions. I want to just give you one definition of grit, and it's perseverance and passion for long-term goals. Perseverance and passion for long-term goals. And that's by Angela Duckworth, who wrote a book on grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, if you want to read, more about that. But as you think about the perseverance and passion for long-term goals, think back to January of 2020. Where were all of us in January of 2020? Where were our goals for the year? Where did we anticipate that we would be on November the 3rd? Aside from Election Day, we knew it was going to be Election Day regardless, but where did we think we would be in our personal goals and our professional goals? And then COVID hit. And everything predominantly just kind of stopped, exploded, was put on a shelf, whatever that it describes with you. But here's the question. Think about your own grit factor and think about it in the terms of perseverance and passion. How have you leveraged that within you for your self-leadership? Leadership, as we know, at its basic is influence. It's basic definition of leadership is influence. And often we focus on how are we influencing others? How am I leading others? How am I making a difference and an impact on others? Well, here's my second question to you this morning. How are you influencing yourself? And let me pause just a moment and see how you would either respond to that or what is coming up in your mind. How would you respond to that? How are you influencing yourself?
Jane,
Yes.
I just got that I'm always influencing myself, even though until you asked the question, I've never thought of my behavior toward myself as influencing myself, whether I am exercising grit or not. It's like, wow, now I'm snapped to attention, like I do influence myself. So how am I influencing myself? Sometimes it's in a good direction and sometimes it's not.
Rose, how about you? I see your hand. Thank you, Sorrel.
Yeah, so I influence myself with my thoughts, my actions, and my behaviors, right? Whether I'm mindful or whether I'm impulsive or whether I do what I say I'm going to do or not, all of that is influencing myself, I think.
Ronald.
Yeah, for me, it's like I'm sharing what I'm up to a lot with everybody. Like just telling people what I'm up to is kind of really kind of fuel for myself. It's like kind of energize me, keep me thinking, how I'm going to share with next person. So that's what fueled me. That's what create the influence, the self-influence, so to speak.
Well, and all of you are exactly spot on, because whether we acknowledge it or not, we are constantly influencing ourselves. And it starts with our mindset. You could even think about later, do you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? If you want to know more about that, we can talk offline. It's where your thoughts, how you view yourself, what stories you're telling yourself. People Acuity is an organization that does a lot about self-leadership, and they define self-leadership as acuity plus influence. What we're seeing, what we're experiencing plus influence, because every day we are influenced by situations and others. I would venture to say that the folks that join in the Daily Huddle on a regular basis, because you're finding value. We find value in the discussions. We find value in the little nuggets that we can extract, be it brief. See, here's the other thing. we're not talking about an enormous quantity of time. We're talking about quality, and we're talking about in that moment, how are we being influenced and how is that influencing ourselves? And that's how grit can come into play with your self-leadership, one aspect. Because grit is not about forcing us to always do hard things or force us to get to the goal line, whatever it is, but rather it's about how we push through challenges and how we engage in something that we do. My grit factor began to develop early on. My dad, I was an Army brat and a preacher's kid, so I got the double whammy. And the first 18 years of my life, we lived in 5 different states, 11 different cities in one foreign country. So as I look back when I was listening to Carolyn Miller about grit and how I began to learn it, I can go back to early in my growing up days and how that was a skill that was developed and still shows up today. So let me offer these 4 a little formula, if you would, about how to tap into your grit factor that will influence and impact your self-leadership. And, you know, it's using the 4 letters of grit, G-R-I-T. G stands for goal. What is your goal? What is your objective? What is your mission? What is it you're trying? What is the challenge you're trying to reach? The R is for your resources. Okay, what resources, what do you need? What people, what accountability factor, what tools, what do you need a coach? Do you need money? Do you need some encouragement? But what resources do you need to help you accomplish your goal? That's the R. I is investment. Nothing happens because we hope it will happen. We have to be intentional. We have to plan. We have to take risk. We have to minimize distractions. We have to persevere. I think before we went live, Sorrel, that was one of your words about persevering. And Angela Duckworth in her research talks about how high grit people hate hard work as much as those who don't have grit. High grit people simply accept hard work as the price they must pay to get to where they want to go. And so they find ways to do it. So what is your goal? What are your resources? You have to be intentional. And then the T is for trust. Trust your training, trust your knowledge, trust your expertise, trust what you have invested in. And when you practice this grit formula, then what will begin to show up more consistently is your courage, your conscientiousness, your follow through, your resilience, your confidence, your self-worth. You know, I think we've all seen those inflatable guys, you know, that just kind of blow around like this, you know, for advertisement, and they just blow and blow and blow. And as long as the air goes, they keep moving. Well, sometimes that's my visual for grit. I'm going to keep moving, but I'm not going to stop, because regardless of the challenge, you know, I'm going to leverage my grit factor to make sure I get to where I want to go. So let me pause and ask you this question again. How can grit, or how is grit, influencing your self-leadership? Thoughts, questions, something you want to close the loop on?
Jane, thank you so much. And, you know, I'm sitting here saying to myself, out of the many definitions we said about grit, what you said is that people who have grit hate hard work as much as the other people. We just realize and commit that this is the price to pay to get what I wanted, to reach the goal I want. So I'm delighted to be leaving this conversation with a definition of grit that gives me the permission to hate hard work.
Very good, very good.
So
Yeah.
Maria has a question.
Yes.
And Rose has one. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Maria.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for this conversation. I hardly ever hear the word. I didn't even know what it really was until you started sharing with us. And then I'm like, yeah, that's a little familiar. And of course, I come from New Orleans. I love good food. And I'm thinking, well, when people say grit, they're really trying to say grits. And they're like saying something else. And then my mind went all in that direction. But I put myself back in your conversation. And to me, it is so uplifting and inspiring that I want you to know I'm going to go get Angela's book and really dive into that and then look at my self-leadership and really take my potential to the next level. So I just want to say I'm deeply grateful and thank you so much.
Awesome, Maria. That's great. Good, good, good. Rose, you had a,
Go ahead.
Okay, Jane. So I took the acronym and I started evaluating myself, right? And I have plenty of goals and I've had some pretty high-minded goals as well, but I don't always use all the resources that are available to me. You know, in fact, it's not even present sometimes to all of the resources that are actually available in my community. Getting present to them now, and I'm, you know, like amazed and pleased at, you know, what's possible. So that's something new for me to begin to work with the resources that are available to me. Not well organized for my investments. Thank God I'm a little bit better with my money than I am with my time. So I see that's an area where I can bring, right, some strength, some improvement to my grit factor. And then trust, I'm like, I'll deal with that one later.
so now, Rose, I just have to ask you right quick. Why will you have to deal with trust later?
Well, you know, I label myself the 95% girl. I have that 5% trust reserve,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's kind of like, really, Rose, you know, 5% might as well be 50.
Uh-huh.
Because you can apply the 5% anywhere you want, right?
Exactly. And how's that working for you? You know?
So it was really actually kind of interesting to take the acronym and kind of just do a self-assessment on my grit factor, you know. And I actually consider myself pretty gritty when I want to be.
You want to be.
Thank you, Jane. That was really good. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions Ronald?
Yeah, so Jane, I really like what Rose was sharing though. You know, thinking that you know, one, I think Rose just said trust is, or your investment is not completely set. But you know, the question I have for you, Jane, looking at investment and trust, could you kind of give us 2 examples in your life, or what have you really done to really, I mean, for myself, I see goal and resources, I'm okay there. So could you give us an example of investment and trust you've done that really, that I, you know, somewhat we could follow, or we could really pick up on and say, okay, if I do this, that will work for me, you know? So that's what I like.
That's a great question, Ronald. And maybe also switch the word investment for being intentional. You know, you have to plan. Here's an example. I'm working on a new leadership program to be ready after the first of the year. Now, I have to be intentional to plan the time to put all the pieces together and develop it. I can't just have all the pieces and say, oh, well, it will come together, you know, in its own time. I have to block time, focus on it, do the development, and then move on. The trusting of the training is then when I get to that point, don't second guess myself. When I'm launching the program, I have to trust all of the work that I did and put into it to develop it and be as prepared as possible. And then trust that training, trust the research, trust that I'm going to be able to respond, even if it's, I don't have the answer to that question. Let me get back to you. Does that help? Okay.
That's so great. So great. Thank you, Jane. I don't know why this conversation has led me to a lot of inquiry. And so I have been in a space of inquiry and in the context of how am I influencing myself. And I don't know, I thought it is such a great inquiry for me. How am I how am I influencing myself? What are the things I'm doing that influences me in the direction that I want to go, right? There is a kind of self-reflection I have for myself where I can see where I am sabotaging myself, right? I can see where I'm no longer consistent. I'm no longer, this is my first time hearing the word grit, so I don't know how to conjugate the word, but I am no longer gritting. I am no longer playing. I just stop playing and I start looking for evidence to stop playing. And I can see myself going into the abyss, no longer playing, no longer consistently pursuing my goals. And so I was looking, well, how do I influence myself back? What is it that I do? And I think it's a little bit of, I am deadly committed to having people in my life smarter than me. Right? That's one way to influence myself. I have to make sure I got people like you, Jane, people like Sorrel, people like Rose, people like join the Daily Huddle on a daily basis. Because I don't want to trust on my own thinking for the opportunity that my life can be. Very self-sabotaging human being.
Yes.
That's one way, books influence me, right? My goals influence me, right? Anyway, so great, such a great conversation. Now I got a question for you. Sorry, I was kind of hugging the opportunity.
That's good.
But I have a question for you. And we're almost at the top of the hour, so I want to be mindful of, I'm going to ask you a big question in some degree. In the current environment that we're in, there is this opportunity we all have to exercise grit in the context of compassion, in the context of love, in the context of understanding other people's fears, understanding all the dust that is in the air influenced by simply other people's conversations, other forces. Any thoughts that you have for us here in the family of the Daily Huddle to exercise grit in that context, love, compassion, understanding, and finding a way to influence others in that direction and not giving up?
That is a big question, Giovanni. And what comes to mind immediately is, one of the indicators of grit is the ability to delay gratification. And in the current environment that we're in, people want to be self-gratified, so they tend to lash out. They tend to not exercise compassion. They tend to show up in a behavior that is anti-gritty. Let me just use that, So if we can cultivate this skill of grit, knowing that its a marker is delayed gratification, then we can not react, but respond with compassion. It's a little technique that I use, SSR. Stop yourself like a red light, then make a physical shift like a yellow light, some physical part of your body. If you're sitting, stand up. If you can't stand up, then shift your body. And then the R is like the green light, then respond. And if you practice that stop, shift, and respond just in a nanosecond, that calms your brain enough so that you can exercise grit in a different way and have a more appropriate response that influences people in a positive manner. That's the short answer that I would give you for that.
And that was a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Jane, for answering that. Sorrel, what are your last thoughts? And then what do you want to give Jane her last word and maybe share with people a turning point one more time?
Absolutely. Before I do that, Giovanni, I want to give Jacqueline Kennedy an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jane. I am overwhelmed with everything you've provided and given this morning. Thank you, Ronald, for asking the question of the I and the T in grit so that I can work on those things. I think I'm not sure why I'm a little stuck here. Influencing others, I have a grasp on, but influencing myself, I hear you say it, but I'm still trying to think, how do I really influence myself? I get off of my good bike ride every morning, but am I influencing myself by even doing that? So could you delve into that just a little bit before we have to get off?
Sure,
you.
Jacqueline, and then if you want to talk offline, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay.
The influencing ourselves, we do that subconsciously and unconsciously by whatever we take in. And I would start first with examining your mindset. Do you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And look at your mindset. How do you view yourself? What stories are you telling yourself? What are you absorbing within? Are you inundated with all that? What would it be noise? However you define that. Okay. I have friends, for instance, that have stayed off of Facebook in recent weeks because of all of the political noise. That's their choice. So however you define noise, that you're taking in and absorbing, that's influencing you. And then it really goes down to the root, though, of how do you view yourself? How do you view yourself? Where is your self-confidence? Where is your self-esteem? And, oh, by the way, emotional intelligence plays into that, which you may hear an offer from Sorrel and Giovanni in a few minutes. So if you can begin to take all of that and process it, and then if you would like to talk offline, I'll be glad to talk further, with you about that.
Okay, thank you. That still helped a lot there.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. I appreciate it, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you, Jane. Jane, before I give you your last words, as we were starting the show, you pointed to Turning Point, an opportunity that both Giovanni and I will be leading on November 12th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and again on November 21st from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. You and anyone, I'm inviting each of you to go to turningpoint.expert and to register for that opportunity. The opportunity to launch yourself and launch your business for 2021. Imagine you want your business to go somewhere, yet you are influencing yourself and you don't know that you are. Or you may be influencing yourself in such a way and you find yourself unable to stop influencing yourself in that direction. Turning Point is the occasion that starts to prime the pump, where you get to practice identifying specifically and clearly how you're influencing yourself. And you get to create specifically and clearly the way you want to influence yourself going forward. That's that opportunity. And then you get to maximize that opportunity at an occasion that on December 5th called Maximizing You. You can learn more about that at maximizing-you.com. Giovanni and I are committed that you launch yourself and your business for 2021 in a way that takes advantage of every opportunity that's coming your way, including the ones that you're inventing and creating yourself. So thank you for considering the invitation. Giovanni and I will see you at Turning Point on November 12th or the 21st, and at Maximizing You on December 5th. And Jane, on that note, what are your last words?
Grit is learned and therefore it must be cultivated. Don't underestimate the value of how you are influencing yourself, because that is showing up in how you influence others.
And these are the last words for today. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll see you tomorrow bright and early. Coach Sheila Carmichael is our special guest.
Oh, yay.
You're going to have a blast
Yeah.
in her space, and I can't wait to see you. Giovanni, I love you. Everyone, see you tomorrow.
Great day.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Jane. It was
Thank you.
wonderful. Really great.